able to heal within and then leave the rest up to God and do what you can do to make sure that those predators never come back again.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, you got to be fair to people. We don't have that.
Right.
You know, right? So we can't tell them that we're going to put them someplace where they never come out again because our society doesn't have such a place.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. Right. Now you got a problem.
Yeah,
Right?
there are many other communities or many other countries in the world where things like this would not be tolerated.
Public
because
execution.
They execute them instantly.
Public execution. Take a look at the face.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you got to know who this is. You got to burn into the minds of people who are tempted that even if they have this illness, they'll be so afraid to act on it that maybe they'll have to kill themselves, but they won't touch a child. Let them throw themselves off the roof. You know what I mean? Make the sign of the cross. Pray to God. You probably do have a malady, but I think our fear was attempted to be allayed in the 90s. The onslaught of the prosecutions. Right, the big ones. They chased that guy all the way up to Massachusetts. The Shanahan fella. They had the guy in Los Angeles. They had a lot of big cases in the 90s, and people are like, oh, they got a handle on this.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we got kind of soft again. So, yeah, we need somebody who's got an iron fist who's going to just kind of I understand all about the, forgiving people and I understand all that, but you don't just say, well, slap them on the wrist and say, well, don't ever do that again, and then put them in the proximity of children. You just don't do that. And there really is an illness in the way we look at certain
Let me ask you this. Yes, I think you're right on, but I want to jump back. Maybe we got a new point here that we could try with the law. Back when maybe 70s or 80s, they came up with this insane but guilty. You remember this? You were still going to be held responsible, even though you were technically under some kind of mental illness disorder, but you were still guilty. All right. So what about in this one? Maybe we should be prosecuting for the failure to turn themselves in. Maybe everybody's going to jail that hasn't turned themselves in yet. Mm-hmm. You've done it once. That means you got to go. And if you haven't copped to even one episode, now you have to. And every time we find you, you're going to now, and that's going to be our way to cleanse it. In other words, if you're a good person and you have this malady, you have to turn yourself in. If you don't, then you're going in as a criminal. Then you're going in hard. But if you want to go in like a mental patient, you better come in before the kid complains.
Yeah. That would then show some self-responsibility. That would. I had a friend who actually became a member of the priesthood in the Catholic Church, and he was going up through the ranks, and they began trying sexual things with him, and he left damaged. So it's in all sorts of layers there, and there are no boundaries. It happens everywhere. But
correct.
We need to get in the point where, as you say, even if I don't know, even when it comes to a child, even if it crosses your mind, go and turn yourself in.
That's it. Has to be. Has to be. If by the time if we have to catch you, that means you knew you were on the way to go do it. You drove over there. You went to the playground. You snatched a kid from school. Whatever horrible thing. You did it. All right, you know what? I apologize. Our time is a little tight because of earlier, but let me ask you if we can do this next topic next time we get together, because I mentioned it briefly, and I'm sure, again, you know a lot of background on this. Cardinal Dolan is trying to ease his conscience now with a new program. This program is, I believe, 2 years old. Last year, it was, if you've been sexually assaulted in a contemporary era, come forward. Mm-hmm. This year it was, if you've ever been molested, come forward. We're going to deal with the oldest cases second. And each of these is supposed to be, in order to get a financial payment, not, I don't know, using the word damages, I'm sorry, whatever it is. It's coming, tell us your story. Your story checks out, we give you a check. And this is supposed to be, so it's now in the second half of the second year. No one can get a word out of what's being paid. No one can get word one. Now, the New York Post and I are working on this. Plus, we have two attorneys who go on behalf of the altar boy in their adult life and bring these kinds of actions. They are also getting no updates on their submissions. Very, very troubling the way this is being handled. And again, Dolan came out, like you would think the modern Pope, representing this is the now. We know all the damage. We know what's gone on, the psychological carnage. We know the lives that have been destroyed. We're here now to do right by you people. And again, no one can tell what's going on. Very troubling.
Right. And in reality, money does not solve the problem, nor does it help the people heal.
Exactly.
What you've gone through, how is money going to fix all of that you've gone through? How is that going to fix it?
Correct. There's no amount available. They haven't printed enough that's going to do that job. All right. So anyway, I apologize for our time mix-up in the beginning, but I want to have you on as we are making a big deal out of whether this thing is legit. Is it really helping people? What do they think and feel about it? And we still have the suspicion about a church that could let a guy like this be floating around. You know, if the media had 4 or 5 paragraphs, they didn't get that information from nowhere. Somebody knew about this guy.
Right. Yes, I agree.
All right. Listen,
I would love to visit with you again, Ed.
You will, and I just for 30 seconds, I will ask you this. I know the audience is dying to know it. How do you handle working in this milieu? Were you always tough? Were you someone who could, handle the worst of the worst subjects, or did you have to toughen up in order to, to write in this area, to work in this area? It's not easy. This is not an easy area.
No, it isn't. And, yeah, I did have to toughen up because there's so much out there that just breaks my heart on a regular basis. But I love people, and I want them to be healed. I want them to know how important they are. And that's the reason I keep doing it, because every person is important, and every person deserves to believe that they are important and that they are worthwhile.
Wow. My hat is off to you. Michelle Nagin is the author of Suffering is Optional. Step out of darkness into the light. It's available on Amazon. She empowers people to overcome their limiting beliefs and their traumatic past so they can reach for their dreams and discover the divine within. Michelle is president and founder of Soul Shift. You can check out the website that's capital I, soul, S-O-U-L, shift.com, soulshift.com. She is also a master herbalist, Shen practitioner, emotional freedom technique expert. My God, that's got to make you so in demand all over the globe. That's like, if there was ever one thing I would check, someone to go with me on a long journey up to Kilimanjaro, it would be, do you have an emotional freedom technique expert that could join me? And energy therapist. She lives in Oregon with her family. Thank you so much for being so generous today, visiting with us, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
Wow, you're really great. I appreciate it. Thank you. Starcom Radio Network, the Ed Tyll Show, huh? You see what happens when you go into the big topics? Not easy. Big topic. And this Pope, man, isn't he going to come out and say something? Not a word. All right, stand by. Mr. Tyll, really no reason to come down on you. Surely a little bit of gratitude is overdue. Go ahead and make them furious. Tell them where to go. They're only blindly curious to the hell down below, Mr. Tyll.
free like the will. No interest for the unfulfilled. And the silent kill. Radio. We can take it where we wanna go. A pointless arrow from a broken bow. Hello, your radio. I get the picture with no photograph. Don't need no video autograph. It's stereo. Oh, oh. Have we become so hideous, rotten to the core, offensively oblivious, ever wanting for more, Mr. Tyll? Take full advantage of an imbecile, cut him off at will. Go ahead and shoot to kill. Mr. Tyll, over 30 and you're laughing still. An exposition in the art of will. Hey, Mr. Tyll. Mr. Tyll. They may see you as unmerciful. I think you still believe in miracles. Hey, Mr. Tyll.
It is the Tyll Show, Starcom Radio Network. Our next guest has been with us before, but we need her now, today. People are literally going nuts at their jobs. Yeah. Say, well, you shouldn't make fun of that. No, I'm talking about anxiety disorders where you're going to go in there and you're like, you can't go into the human relations department like that. Remember when it was called personnel? Didn't you like it better when it was personnel? To the human relations. Anxiety disorder, the most common mental disorder in the United States, affects 18% of adults. Wow. It's 1 in 6, right? 1 in 6. Globally, anxiety disorders are the 6th leading cause of disability. Disability. Something else that's bad, been going on for at least, I know personally of examples of this that go back 10 or 15 years ago. I'm sure Peggy knows even further back. Anxiety meltdowns at like 14 and 15 now. Oh, yeah. It's not just an adult with a divorce, a bankruptcy, all these adult things. And kids, 14, 15 years old, anxiety disorder diagnosis. I know, it's like a weird song. You're playing, these are a few of my favorite things? Not really. Peggy Self is a personal development coach, productivity strategist, motivational speaker, and author. Her website's www.peggyselfon.com. And www.escapefromanxiety.com. Her books include Embodying the Power of the Zero Stress Zone and Escape from Anxiety. Supercharge your life with powerful strategies from A to Z. Both books are available on Amazon. 1 in 6 is like way too many. You can fit 12 people on an elevator. Am I right about this? People are, or, Ed Tyll, skeptic. They want to say anxiety disorder because they're drama queens. They can't accept stress, handle it like an adult. It must be devastating, overwhelming, disabling, so that I can claim it, get on Facebook, join the group, get the pills, go and, have what everybody else is having. Now I notice you're not answering, you're just laughing. So I know I'm right, right? I'm right. There's a bunch of, ever since the Stones wrote a great song back in the 60s. The name of the song was Mother's Little Helper.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about the Klonopin pin. And she takes the little yellow pill. She'll go running for the shelter after Mother's Little Helper. Get her through her dying day. Da, da, da. So, I mean, that was over 50 years ago. It was,
and we're
yeah.
still doing that. Now it's under the guise of the pharmaceutical industry. Here, take this pill, you'll feel better. And people are just gravitating towards that. But, you made a really important comment that I just really want to shed light on, that anxiety meltdowns are not just 14 and 15-year-olds. We're seeing them now as young as 8. So this is really expanding. It's really affecting people's lives in a lot of different ways. And it isn't, it's interesting because I also think we're too quick to label. A lot of people are labeled with anxiety disorders, and it could just be uncontrolled chronic stress that they're not dealing with, and especially in the workplace. I mean, you look at the American Institute of Stress talks about what's happening with, on-the-job pressures and fear of losing job. That's, yes, some anxiety, but it's also just stresses of what's real, what's happening, what's in your life in this moment.
Right.
And there's so many things we can do about it, where your previous guest talking about, suffering is optional. It's true. So you have choices. And that's the thing to me.
See,
that's
this
really
is, you got to watch it. You
encouraging.
got to watch it, though, with my crowd. Who believes, in the free lunch or the suffering is optional? In what universe do the pain molecules miraculously not show up? With all these little dummies down here, they're so dumb, they're suffering. Look at them, Seth. Look at the smart people up here not suffering. You got to watch out. If you're not suffering, you're not alive. If you don't feel pain, if pain doesn't stop you occasionally
Actually,
from
pain can be a motivator.
Well, but see, that's what I mean. We can't make everything bad into good. I think that's the fallacy.
I agree with you, but
all
here's
bad
the
is not
takeaway.
just euphemistically renamed good. George Orwell said, "Be careful. They're going to do that with you. They're going to name.
You're
They're going to
absolutely
name
right.
stuff.
However,
they're going to. Yes, go on. I'm listening.
We're out of control right now, and people are struggling, suffering. And here's the bottom line: they're getting sick. The illness is through the roof. Obesity, headaches, insomnia.
Yes.
All of these things are from chronic stress, from anxiety, and we're not paying attention to them. We're not being mindful. We're not learning ways to change this. So we do have choices, and that's the takeaway on this.
Right.
We can really interrupt those patterns.
Well, here's what's going to be very unpopular, so I'll say it. This is my job. My job is to say what's unpopular. Okay. They have walked away from everything they need. They need 50-year marriages. They don't have the emotional stability to do it. You need good marriages to have emotionally healthy children. Again, they're not emotionally healthy. They're emotionally immature. So their children have nowhere to turn with good results on record. They know to listen to some BS explanation. My parents believe in this, but they can't find the scoreboard working. But guess where they see it. But guess where they see it. Guess where they do see it. Let me finish the point, then please comment. But guess where they do see it. They got some good grandparents, married 61 years. They love these people. They think they're smarter than their parents. They like them more than their parents. They think they're better people than their parents. And they're right because they go, they found each other and they stayed together through tougher times than mom and dad. Mom and dad broke up over cocaine in the 80s. They broke up over overspending in the 90s. These two stayed together on a breadline, speaking a foreign language. So that's what I think is very tough, to show a 40-year-old that you've destroyed your own family because you don't have the emotional strength to do what keeps people together. And now you're on a desperate search that you're praying to God it's something that's not you. And keep looking, because the answer's in the mirror. It is you. That's what they don't have. They're full of stress because they don't have parents that they trust. They don't have a model of a working marriage or a working relationship. So they got nothing to guide them. So my heart breaks. But I feel for them because we were able to look up at somebody. They have nobody to look up with, you know.
But, you know, it isn't just the grandparents, and I think that's a really good point, but it's also just society, our culture. It's the way we're really spinning out of control. People have no attention span. They're constantly being bombarded by all these digital impulses from, you know, texts and tweets and phones and you name it. So they're constantly in this agitated state. And what grandparents can show us is a calmness, a sense of beingness, which we aren't developing skills to do. And we're not developing skills to be mindful about how we're feeling about these things and being aware. I think that's very important, though. You're right, because what these kids are seeing are nervous parents who are worried and anxious about everything, and they're learning that kind of behavioral conditioning. It's not healthy. I agree with you.
You know,
Very good point.
embodying the power of the zero stress zone is something that would bear a little discussion right now because, you know, it does sound a little unrealistic that you could get into a zero stress zone on the face of it. So explain what that means a little bit and, you know, how it's attainable.
Right. I think that's a really good point. And actually, this book is a book I've published, and it's the compilation of the teachings of a world-renowned spiritual master, Yogi Amrit Desai. And the zero stress zone is something that, Ed, you've experienced a million times, and so have your listeners. And it is that place you get into where you just kind of disappear into the moment. You might be working on a project that seemed hard at first, and then you really got into it, and you were going to spend an hour, and suddenly 5 hours has gone by. Where were you? Where did that time go? So athletes get into it when they really have all these moments come together. Performers get into it, but then when they step out of the performance, they're out of the zero stress zone. So many people get to that place, but they don't know how they get there. And it's a place of integration. It's a place where body and mind really come together in this place of union, where everything's working optimally. We function in this culture in our minds, in our thoughts, and they're constantly distracting and pulling us in a million different directions. They're not good for our health, and they're not good for our focus, our well-being. And so as a result of that, we're constantly being pulled out of the zone. And you can access the zone just by learning some skills on how to get your mind quiet. My book, Escape from Anxiety, I have 100 different strategies for how to interrupt those patterns of stress, anxiety, fears. And so one of them that I'd love to share with your listeners is just a simple Qigong movement. I call it Heaven and Earth. And they can actually access it at 1minute2destress.com. And it's just a very gentle movement, and it helps reinforce breathing as well as movement. So you're moving vital life force energy through your body, and you're help restoring homeostasis, the balance of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So in 1 minute, you can interrupt a frenetic, crazy, frazzled moment and just allow yourself to kind of come back into this place of harmony. And when you do it more and more and more and practice it, you learn how to access that zone more consciously rather than just accidentally when you're doing something. Does that make sense to you?
It does, and I'm actually following right on the website right now, so I'm with you. 1 minute to de-stress. Get instant access to this amazing amazingly simple movement. Yeah, see, that's the thing, right? You have to constantly remember that you need to interrupt what your patterns are, right? You're breaking your pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's breaking bad patterns. If you're feeling lousy, do you want to continue feeling lousy or do you want to change it? So it's empowering yourself to change it. And also, I think one of the things that I meant to say earlier when you talked about the grandparents and how 40-year-olds aren't accessing those places, it's also about self-worth. We're not taking time to really recognize who we are and what we have in our own inner
Well, there you
greatness that
go.
we can
Wow.
tap
Look at
into.
you. Look at you. I mean, look at the big difference. Self-worth, when in the year I was born, was not your bank account. Today, it's your bank
Right.
account. That's it. They kill themselves all at the guy jumped out a window last week. The couple did themselves in over bills on Fifth Avenue. Jumped out of a beautiful building. As a married couple, they left their kids behind. Couldn't handle the bills. So we've translated entire human beings into balance sheets. So, look, where I come from, see, here's the thing. The difference between you and me, I can hear it in your voice coming. See, where you have a lot of compassion. Where I come from, we have a lot of Darwinian theory about this. You get what you reap what you sow. You just made room for a better person. There's better than you out there. You need to be out because you're practicing bad things. They're leading to bad places. Keep going with your bad stuff. Make room. Make room for people who won't do what you do. Now I know it's harsh, but that is how
it's harsh, and I do believe that there's something of value in each and every person. And I think sometimes it takes a whole lifetime to find it, but it's there. And we wouldn't be here if it wasn't there. And it's taking that time and learning how to tap into it. And when you do, you actually create heaven on earth, and it becomes a whole different experience. Not that there aren't painful
well, yeah,
moments.
I mean, look,
not that there aren't
right.
bad
I
times.
agree.
But you
yeah.
approach things completely differently with a whole different perspective.
Yeah. Well, this is what happens if you do, what do they call it now? It's a very common phrase people are using. This is the flyover view, where the people are like tiny, tiny specks down there. Yeah, you can take that point of view. But, the people are stuck living in those specks down there. I think that's why we have to have moral and civil authority in a society. It's you could get people to agree certain things are not so good, but there's going to be a list of other things that either way they have to be stopped. They're just going to have to be stopped. Even if people believe they're doing the right thing and they're sincere as the day is long, still has to be stopped. Still cannot be allowed to destroy what the rest of us are working on. It's tough.
So who's the judge?
Like Darwin says, the survival of the fit, the strongest one. The strongest one gets it, always. Should be. This is no planet for make sure the bottom gets it. That could be a different planet. This is the planet that is in the solar system, that is working with the periodic table of elements, with the animals.
And that's changing rapidly. The Schumann resonance is really changing. The energetic frequencies on Earth are changing.
They
so
are.
we need to adapt with it. And
well,
if we
yes.
don't,
well,
you're right. The Darwinian theory will kick back in.
It will. The dominant shall always dominate. Jesus did great
Jesus
with that.
Said, the meek shall inherit the earth.
That's why he's Jesus. That's why he's not. That's why he doesn't have a hedge fund. No one ever had a hedge fund working that logic. So that's my point. Right. If you want to be a sacrificial martyr, you will appeal to the best. There's no question. But you also see how those folks end up. That's really not what we want for people to wind up that way. We want them to wind up, kind of keeping things moving along. And in order to move along, there is a little
contribute. They need to contribute to the world and contribute to their communities and be part of it.
That's right.
I think we're seeing a shift, and I think the millennials are beginning to recognize some of that, and I'm encouraged seeing some of the paths that they're taking and some of the attitudes and the work that they're doing. So I'm hopeful that we're shifting. And look, I think every generation we do kind of have that pendulum swinging, and we sort of experiment with, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and then, the pendulum swings in a different direction.
Right.
And I just think it's the nature of humanity. It's part of what our experiences are and how we move through our lifespans.
This is such a great topic. We have to pursue it your next visit because
Awesome. I'd love to.
right, if you look at this big continuum, then the dirty little secret is, of course, we're going to lose everything. What do you think? We're different than Rome and Greece? What do you think? We're angels and we're humans. Greed,
Right.
avarice, sloth, laziness, dishonesty, deception. There's a reason there's 10 commandments. Those were good suggestions to stop doing. They were really good. And they're going like crazy. They're going on nonstop. And, there's a rationalization today because there is an express morality. People do want to say, either I hate Trump and he's bad for what the world's about, or thank God for Trump, it's about time. All this kind of stuff is leading people to conclude one way or another, and it's too bad because, we're not...
Actually, I think it's a good thing because it's making people more mindful and more aware of the things that they do want in their lives and the things that they don't want in their lives. And hopefully it's encouraging them within, again, their own communities, their own families, to behave morally in the way that they feel is going to perpetuate humanity rather than being destructive and dishonesty, avarice, all of these things kind of tear us down. So it's really looking at the impact that it's having and look at the world at large. So you see all of the chaos and all of the confusion, and yet if you drill down to individual communities and individual families, you see a different picture because not everybody is connected to this sort of global chaos on a day-by-day basis. They have their own fears, worries, and issues that they're dealing with, and they're resolving them. They're beginning to step through it. And I feel more encouraged and really seeing more and more coaches like myself out there reaching people and giving them that step up to be able to really move through whatever's holding them back, whatever challenges they have. I'm beginning to see this on a global basis, and that to me is very encouraging.
Well, that's good. We do want to be hopeful. We do want to believe that the human spirit will find a way to evolve and deal with and finally overcome. But, here's my lament. Again, we'll do more of this next time we chat. But the two biggest engines of prosperity from the current generation of young people has been remaking a phone and remaking a message board. We've invented zero with the Apple and the Facebook, and that's a tragedy. It used to be, my impression, the greatest minds at Harvard, the most creative people are looking to actually improve the quality of life. And, we're staring at a screen. We're talking more on a phone. Those are old inventions, and they were spiffed up. And everybody went with, no, this is worth $1,200. I had a $30 Moto Razr from Motorola in 1992. Loved that phone. It was awesome. Got to my boss every time. $800, $1,200 iPhone. Then you say, well, that's the end of Rome. That's what they look like. Everything got so self-absorbed. A phone could become a $1,200, a big expense in the family and, looked up to, status symbol. And then you probably know this word. You remember Lou Gehrig's disease? You hear about that years ago?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, ALS.
My friend just died of it. They haven't made one study, zero progress since Lou Gehrig died. So Lou Gehrig to 2017, zero. But, we rebuilt the phone into a $1,200 silly, it's like a bangle.
Honestly, I beg to differ with you on that because I see a lot of growth and changes, especially some of the breakthroughs in healthcare, the stem cell therapy that's coming into more applications. I think a lot of things in the U.S. are limited because we're so monitored by the FDA. But if you look at Europe and some of the other areas, there have been some amazing breakthroughs. There are some amazing breakthroughs in treating cancer. And it's not coming into the mainstream as quickly as it could because we have, big pharma stopping the flow and wanting to maintain their share, that avarice and greed that you were talking about earlier.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying, right? In other words, like, how could the pharma industry not have the same disease that Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs had? The disease is greed. Straight up greed. I'm the biggest. Amazon's got it now. How healthy you have something called antitrust to make sure.
Right.
Yeah, and he's sailing around like he's the most popular guy because he's the candy man. Anything you want on your phone, he can send it to you in 2 days. Right. So, we got more to talk about next time, but you're great being on the show today. Love having you on about all this.
Thanks, Ed. I love being with you. I never know what we're going to talk about.
I know.
And it's always fascinating. So
it really is. You're so good. Thank you. And thanks for being so generous with your time. Peggy Self, everybody. We love her. This is one of my favorite things, to have Peggy Self on the show. Anxiety disorders. Peggy is a personal development coach, productivity strategist, motivational speaker, and author. And the websites are easy. Go to www.peggy, P-E-G-G-Y, Selfon, SEALFON.com, or go to escapefromanxiety.com. Also, you can go to 1minute2destress.com, which is one that I learned during the interview, so you can go there as well. Her books include Embodying the Power of the Zero Stress Zone and Escape from Anxiety. Supercharge your life with powerful strategies from A to Z. Both books are also available on Amazon. It's the Tyll Show, Starcom, Radio Network AM/FM stations all across America.